everybody. 5U for here in the chilly snake pit of Columbus, Ohio.
Elliott has the first down and more, and Elliott's going to have a touchdown.
Carr, watch out! Blake Carr, blazing speed. Can he get there? No, but he's down at the Ohio State 11.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins.
Stroud in trouble, and Stroud is sacked again.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State, the game of the day, the game of the year, the game of the decade. Call it what you will.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, everything Michigan and Ohio State football related. Big shout out to our sponsor, Elevated Integrity Construction. If you are doing a home build, church build, not only do they do the construction, they also do the design element. So if you want something that's going to leave a legacy, go with integrity. It's elevatedintegrity.com. Elevatedintegrity.com. We are grateful to our friends there for their sponsorship. All right, so we have got Michigan, Ohio State, but before we do that, we're going to break the ice with a little bit of a wheel route. By the way, make sure you subscribe wherever you are getting your podcast, however you're listening or watching. Thank you for that. Be sure to tell a friend. Make sure we get this in front of more eyes and ears. Wow, super official wheel route here. Yeah, there we go.
We got
Spin
it.
that wheel. Wow.
Let's see it. What do we have this week?
Exciting times.
Upset. Oh,
No.
It juked me a little
Favorite
bit. That
player
was
upset.
that was definitely on upset.
Looked like Colorado State trying to tackle Blake Corum. That's exciting. Favorite player, past, present. I guess on your team. So I guess go with Ohio State.
Well,
And let's go present. Let's go present day.
I'm not even going to Ohio State. So what I have, because
cool. Great.
I
Why would
thought-
we? It's the Rivalry Podcast. Why would we do something about Ohio State?
It's easy to pick your favorite player from your own team. So I wanted to go a little separate. My favorite player between Hawaii or Arkansas State is
This
former
can't be real.
quarterback GOAT, Colt Brennan.
Wow. From the they went 12-0 that year,
Yeah,
didn't
he
they?
was a
13-0,
stud.
something like that.
That dude was so good.
Yeah. He's no longer with the team, and Hawaii is now absolutely terrible. But sure, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. I guess to spice it up, I'll do favorite player currently on Ohio State just to make things a little interesting.
Is it none of them?
It is.
How long did this take for you to find?
Man, I'll say for right now, I'll say Tommy Eichenberg.
Okay.
Just because
Respect.
he had, and we'll talk about that later, but just because he had such a phenomenal game, in a game where you had something to prove on the defensive side of the football for Ohio State. That's the type of guy that you forget it that it's Ohio State with me for a second, Michigan fans. That's the type of guy you want on your team when you have something to prove, someone who steps up in the big moments and makes a play, because that's what it took to get the job done. We'll talk about that here in a second. So I feel like I need to shower now. That was disgusting.
Gonna say, how did that feel? And that's recorded too.
I hate
so we
this
have that not
podcast.
only in audio but video form. So you can't even listen to the audio
I
and
hate
say
this
it wasn't.
podcast a lot sometimes.
All right, well, we want to start things off with Michigan. I have so many questions.
What questions do you have? They won by 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it went about as everybody expected. You know, beating Colorado State 51-7. The defense, I thought maybe would take a step back. That just wasn't the case at all.
They said everybody eats.
7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, an interception thrown in there. But my question for you, and I want to hear your thoughts on the game.
I know where this is going, and I don't want to talk about it.
The quarterback, Cade McNamara.
There it is.
There it is. After the game was asked his thoughts, and I think some of this is just people reading a little bit too much into it, but I want to hear your thoughts. It's kind of a 2-part question.
Okay.
So his official quote
It's like
was
the
him
ACT
saying,
over here. Goodness.
it was kind of a thing when he was asked about Harbaugh not choosing a definite starter, and he said, yeah, it's kind of a thing that I wasn't expecting. By the end of camp, I thought I had my best camp and put myself in a good position. So I think the article I read was saying that he says he's he's unhappy. I don't read it as that. As just an outside fan, I think any athlete wants to be the starter.
I think that's it.
Especially when they feel like they were good. What else is he supposed to say? But my questions to you, Jace, your initial thoughts on that response, but then unbiased opinion.
Don't make me pick favorite kids.
You're going into week 2.
Yeah.
Who do you want as the starting quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines?
Okay, so there's a lot in there. So I agree. I think that's a fair assessment on Cade. No, I think here's what I want to believe and what I think is probably happening. He's going to be asked that question. That is a really difficult question to answer for exactly what you just said. No athlete is going to say, no, I don't think I should start at all. In fact, I had a terrible fall camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one's going to say that. By the same token, though, it left, I felt like it could have been more clear because it almost felt a little bit whiny. And I'm not saying that it was, but it kind of got you can read into anything when someone says, that's the decision coach went with. Hey, like I felt like I had a really good fall camp. I was surprised by it, but that's not my call. That could go either into the whining camp or it can be, that's just the reality. And I'm going to choose to believe this kid was the starting quarterback for what's now the defending Big Ten champions. He's still in a quarterback 1 battle to start again this year. He knows he didn't have the best game against Colorado State. It wasn't bad, just wasn't terribly impressive. It was pretty pedestrian. I guess what do you want him to say there? And so I feel like it's a lot of just, that's the reality. And the kid is also a captain. I have a hard time believing he's coming out of Colorado State as a team captain complaining about the fact that he's not the starter. I feel like it may be a lot of pressure on himself. Yeah, it's unconventional. It maybe was surprising, but I'm not going to read too much into it unless he gives me more reason to read too much into it. I don't love it because I felt like it could have been more clear. Second part of the question is, well, Harbaugh's already said JJ starting against Hawaii. That's the whole thing, right? So it's Cade with JJ playing, and then it's going to be JJ with Cade playing. Right now, it's JJ's job to lose. Anybody who watched the game, it's not like, oh, it was garbage time and JJ came in. Cade struggled on the very first drive.
Yeah. I mean, he finished he was 9 of 18 for only $136.
Which is, it's pedestrian is the only word I can come up.
Colorado State, you expect bigger numbers.
Well, and he looked like, and again, you maybe were reading into this, but it looked to me like he knew that the competition was fierce from JJ and he tried to do too much and he got in his own head. That's what it looked like to me. JJ looked calm, cool, collected. Dude is fast.
Yeah, I mean,
dude is fast.
Dude comes in 4 for 4, only for 30 yards, but I mean, he was accurate. 3 rushing attempts, 50 yards, and a touchdown. I mean,
the offense just looked like, and we saw little glimpses of this last season too, where the offense just looked like it clicked better. And it looks to me like he took a step beyond where he was naturally, right? But beyond just, hey, he's talented, but he's kind of sporadic all over the place. There were a few plays, last year where he would just run around like crazy in the backfield. He looks calm, cool, collected. He's electric. I think it's his job to lose. Now, that being said, let's look at Hawaii coming up.
Here it goes.
Hawaii is a terrible football team.
Oh, absolutely atrocious.
If you thought Colorado State was bad, you're going to love Hawaii. It's kind of like when, I don't know if your parents were like this growing up, we can't afford Fruit Loops, but we can afford Fruity Circle O's.
I'm a proud Mountain Holler drinker for life.
Mountain Holler, and then if you go way in the back, Hill Yell.
Yes.
It's in there too.
Yes.
It's just fantastic. So that's kind of what I'm looking at with Colorado State to Hawaii. So will you learn anything? Maybe, maybe not. But Cade's going to get a chance to play against Hawaii too. So it's not like, oh, one guy got a weaker opponent.
Everybody's going to get a chance to play against Hawaii.
Well, and frankly, and I'll throw this out there and we can move on. But for a team like Michigan that has struggled at the quarterback position over the last few years, obviously back during the Rich Rod era and the Brady Hoke era and the beginning of Harbaugh's tenure, credit to Jim Harbaugh and the recruiting, because the quarterback from a depth perspective, I think is as deep as anybody in the country.
Oh yeah, it's solid.
Bowman and Orgy and McCarthy and McNamara. I mean, any of those guys could start at a Division I school. Not all at the same school, but at any Division school, So I think that's a good sign. there's not much to say about the game against Hawaii. It's going to be a beatdown. It's in prime time at 8:00 on Big Ten
Just
Network.
what everybody wanted.
If you want to stay up past midnight watching Michigan trounce Hawaii, you can.
Which we will.
Because we love college football.
Absolutely.
I've got it 63-10.
Okay.
I just, it's not going to be close. Hawaii is very bad.
I have kind of a similar takeaway from you. I read the quote from Cade and I thought the same thing. What is this guy supposed to say in that situation? I think I see his point of view. He's the defending Big Ten champion. He was the starter for most of last year. Like, he's a captain. How can you not name that guy a starter? But I also watched J.J. McCarthy play and I go, Cade, we gotta be realistic here, dude. Like,
it's great that you checked down every play, but sometimes you gotta throw the ball forward.
Yes, and I think McCarthy showed us exactly what everybody already knew. He took a step in that maturity factor, and he just showed what I think everybody already knew, that he is the guy that you want to give the keys to and just let go. And that's hard. It's a tough spot. We talked about it last week on the podcast, where how do you take away a starting job for a guy that has done the job and done what you asked him? I mean, he's done everything you want. Yeah. He's won games. He's beat Ohio State. He won a Big Ten championship. He's not a bad player. It's not like the other members of the team are doing anything. Goodness. So it's tough to bring it down. I don't think you could also tell a lot. The one thing I hate about these games early in the year is they're exciting. You know you're going to win, barring an Appalachian State mishap.
15 years ago, it was all over Twitter, and I could not escape it.
But it's those games where you try not to read too much into those because the level of competition is so drastically different. And that's the same thing going into Hawaii. I mean, man, I have never seen, I don't know if it says anything worse about the Mountain West Western Division, that Hawaii is 0-2 and they are losing games. They lost to Vanderbilt. You heard that right, Vanderbilt, 63-10. They gave up 63 points to Vanderbilt and then lost 49-17 against Western Kentucky. And they are still in first place in the Western Division of the Mountain West. That is
yikes,
unbelievably bad.
By the way, as a side note, talk to your kids about an undefeated Vanderbilt. Talk to your kids about undefeated Vanderbilt. Well, you can, because it won't last, but they're 2-0, and that's exciting.
But that is just absurd to me. That sticks out widely to me, that they are getting blown out in their first two games. Their quarterback hasn't even thrown a touchdown this year. He's got 4 interceptions on the year. They are just not good.
I gave him 10 points too.
Yeah, you gave him 10 points.
Give me your wild prediction.
My prediction is 63-0. I think Michigan's defense showed exactly who they are. They proved some of the doubters. Not saying Michigan's defense was going to be bad, but I think some people expected them to fall off and downgrade a little bit, and I didn't see that at all. Yeah. Granted, it was against Colorado State. I was going to say,
competition matters.
Competition does matter, but I think Hawaii, as bad as they are, the Michigan offense is just so explosive.
You're going to be able to go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Yes. If the starters were in all game, they would probably break 100, but because they'll slow it down.
Say they won't.
A mere 63 is all I can
give. Say they won't break 100 right now.
It's not just a game, it's the game. You're listening to The Rivalry.
By the way, on Twitter at RivalPod, you retweet this episode with a score prediction. You could win a $25 gift card to Chick-fil-A on Twitter at RivalPod. Make sure you do that. Speaking of defense, let's talk about Ohio State. Here's me posing a question to you as Ohio State beats Notre Dame.
I think we know who our quarterback is.
Is it Kyle McCord?
It is.
Okay. I have a question about the Ohio State defense, because all that I have heard after the game was, wow, what a hire to get Jim Knowles. My goodness, what an amazing defense. And again, I gave credit to Tommy Eichenberg at the beginning of the podcast. I am not ready to say, man, Ohio State's defense is just lights out and fixed. Notre Dame has a new starting quarterback, a new starting running back, and their top wide receiver didn't play in the game. And Ohio State trailed that game for half of it. Ryan Day went into this whole thing about we fixed some things. It's a top 5 win. That's huge. It's a 17.5 point spread, my guy. Mm-hmm. That is the same spread that Alabama at Texas opened as this week. By the way, that's now up to 20. But it's the same. It's like Alabama struggling most of the game with Texas and then bragging about it. I'm not impressed by that. Notre Dame does not have a good offense. What did you learn about the Ohio State defense? What's your take on that?
I do think that they took a step up. I am not willing to jump on board the Jim Knowles train yet and say, man, they just looked incredible. I think Notre Dame being number 5 in the nation clouds a lot of people's mind. I'm with you. I said it last week. Their entire offense was essentially new and young coming into a very hostile Ohio Stadium. It was going to be a tough game regardless.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, although I will say Notre Dame's quarterback surprised me with his poise.
He played
their
well.
offense played very conservative, which I kind of expected with throwing in some new young guys in there. It kept them in the game. The one thing I will say, Ohio State didn't have Fleming. They also didn't have Smith and Jigba for a majority of the game, which I think hurts. I do think Notre Dame's defense is as good as it was advertised. I agree. I think you got to take that into account. You lose 2 of your top receivers early. It's the very first game. There's going to be a little bit of rust always when you're playing a high caliber talent team. And then I also think Notre Dame's just got a good defense. Offensively, they were what we thought. I think nobody expected them to put up 20-plus points against Ohio State.
So I think it's fair to say that we're probably on the same page, even as being an Ohio State guy, to go, is the defense good? Maybe. That's kind of my conclusion. Yeah,
I'll wait and see by like mid-year when they get into the Wisconsin.
Wisconsin comes to town at the end of September, and that might be the one that tells you.
Yes, I think right now it's safe to say they improved. I'm not ready to go ahead and say, man, they've got a top offense and top defense, and they're going to be in the national championship and the playoffs. And I'm not ready to say any of that yet. I've got to see more. Even Jim Knowles after the game said, like, we were pretty basic, and I kind of hated that because I'm like, it was a top 5 matchup, and you probably should have done as much as you could. And
but I think on the offensive side, I think it is important to mention Fleming was out. He was a game time decision. Smith and Jigba was also out, took a hit to the head, which again, if you understand targeting, please tweet at RivalPod because I do not.
I don't think anybody does.
I do not understand it. That's all I'll say on that. Even as a Michigan man, I'm watching that going, I mean, if he's in concussion protocol because he got hit in the head, like, I don't know. But Ryan Day said that they are evaluating him. They're not sure if he'll be good to go this week. Frankly, if I'm Ohio State, I probably don't play him this week. You've got Arkansas State, who won 2 games last year.
Hey, the Red Wolves are coming.
Don't risk the dude getting injured, taking a weird hit. Let him rest.
Yeah,
you don't need him.
There's no need for him or Fleming, honestly, to come into this game and play. Let them get the extra week to recover, get themselves right, and then you'll see. I
will say this, though. Despite missing the receivers, I was not impressed with C.J. Stroud.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that.
Well, and granted, again, Stroud is one of my least favorite Ohio State players. For a number of reasons, I thought his comments were soft after the game. I thought his comments about not winning the Heisman were terrible. I'm not a fan. And I don't want to berate student athletes or anything like that, but this is a football podcast. From a football standpoint, I don't care for him. That being said, he's wildly talented, but I just did not see it. This is a game where, again, you trailed half the game. Whether you've got Fleming and Njigba or not, you've still got some wild, talented offense. Mm-hmm. You've got to be able to make those plays. If you are a championship caliber quarterback, if you are a Heisman contender, the way that you propose to be, or you purport to be, I got to see that in those big moments those are the type of Heisman moments that you need to have. I did not see that from him. Am I being a homer? Am I off base here?
No, I would say your assessment is fair in a sense. I look at his stats, 24,
except for where it's trash.
Except for every part of it. I look at his stats, 24-34, 223, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was a very clean and basic game from him. I still think you got to give him a little credit. It was against a top 5 team in the nation with a very, very good defense. He didn't make mistakes. In the second half, he was making some incredible throws in tight pockets that I think showcase just what talent he actually has. I would go on board with what you're saying, though, of when you're talking a Heisman level, these are the games where you can't just get away with doing a clean, basic game.
Right.
You can't. It was a very Cade McNamara game. He didn't do enough He didn't do
I
anything.
hate how fair that is. I absolutely hate how
He didn't
good
do
that
anything to
assessment
lose
is.
the game.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that he was the reason that we won the game.
Now
I
I'm-
think
now I'm
a
upset.
combination of the defense. Well, that's what the whole point is to get you riled up. But I think he did enough to solidify the win. He showed some basic leadership capabilities in leading that offense down. And I think he did just enough. But like you said, when you're talking Heisman, I'm expecting 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, some more electric plays. And it just wasn't.
I want to see him from that perspective. You want to see him make plays that will win you the game, not just not lose.
Yeah.
When you are 17.5-point favorites at home. Like you just have to. I threw this out at Rival Pod, and I think I upset a few people, and that's okay. But the last drive was beautiful by Ohio State. And my comment was, as they run the ball for 95 yards, they Hassan Haskins Notre Dame. That's hard to say.
I mean,
Hassan Haskins Notre Dame. And I was like, oh man, they've learned something from that. That was exciting. I wish Notre Dame had tried more of that, because I think they would have been a little more successful. But man, again, credit to Ohio State. At the end of the day, you got the win. It doesn't really matter how pretty it was. I have my concerns. I have said my piece, but you still won a top 5 football game.
And I think it shows a lot at the end of the day. Trailing at half, you go up, and now the second half was just complete dominance. I mean, the fact that they could have easily went into halftime, head hanging low, man, because they all know they were 17.5 points. It's dumb if they try to say they don't. Everybody in that locker room knew they were favored by a massive amount. And to come out and be that laser focused, and it was like a completely new team, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, agree.
To shut them out, hold them to so little yardage the entire second half. I forget what it was in the second half, but they outgained them.
Much.
But they outgained them. It was like 200 or 300 something yards to like 70. I mean, the thing I took away, and I guess we can leave it at this, was going out of that, it would have been old Ohio State, 2021 Ohio State would have counted themselves out of that game, and I don't know if they come back and win.
Yeah, that defense would have cracked.
Yeah, they would have cracked. But this defense came out and they played their butts off, and the offense came out and said, we know what we can do, and let's go out there and just execute. And they did. And I think that was my biggest takeaway, is the halftime adjustments were actually made, and there was a desire to come out there and win.
59-0 is my prediction for Saturday, because I don't know how else to preview Arkansas State. They went 2-10 last year. I think they beat Central Arkansas, which is apparently a program that exists, and Louisiana Monroe, which I think is Division I.
The Raging
No.
Cajuns?
No. ULM, the Warhawk people. Anyway, they're bad. 59-0 is the prediction.
My prediction is 56-7. We're not even that far off on our predictions.
We might not be far off on our predictions. Doesn't mean we're close, because we were terrible at predicting the Ohio State game. Was absolutely awful. Congratulations to Haley on Twitter. 21-7 Ohio State is what she picked.
Zero idea how she came up with
Whatever you know, and however you know it, if you want to share that with us in the future, that would be much appreciated. Your chance to win, again, $25 Chick-fil-A gift card this week. On Twitter at RivalPod. Just retweet this episode, put a score prediction for Ohio State game, Michigan game, both, whatever, and you've got a chance to win as well. JP, Rutgers to the Rose Bowl before we close out. You are repping the, is that home field also?
It is home field.
Not a sponsor, but if they want to, you are welcome to. Rutgers to the Rose Bowl.
We're feeling great.
A win on the
great.
road at BC.
Hey,
the Gavin Wimsatt era is here.
And not even that great. It was more like the Evan Simon and Gavin Wimsatt era. Kind of a hot mess. Nobody knew this, or at least I wasn't aware, that Noah Vidral was actually out with an injury, which was news to almost everybody.
Shiano playing it close to the vest there.
He did. He played it right up until game time. It was announced that he would not be starting. I thought, man, for sure Wimsatt's going to be the starter. We're going to go in there, get a whole full game, and they pulled a Michigan, and they split time between him and Evan Simon. Offense was just as bad as we thought it would be. I think our Evan Simon was our lead passer with 67 yards. How you win a football game with 67 yards passing? Rutgers somehow did it.
It's Big Ten football. It's the same way that Iowa beats South Dakota State 7-3.
Oh, it
with
was
a field goal and 2 safeties.
It was gross, but
Gross.
I will say, and this doesn't mean Boston College is anybody to really like toot your own horn about, but when you're Rutgers, that's a key win. Schiano starting each of his first 3 years here
you're so
with
bad.
a win.
Rutgers is so bad.
They're not great.
They're 1-0 though.
Hey,
So
1-0.
So what's the % chance of Rutgers to the Rose Bowl?
Well, I'm going to go ahead.
Let me say this first. Last week we said the chance was 100%. I don't think that's how numbers work. But we're going to go with
It's
it.
weird because my calculator says they're 1-0 and they're right up there with Ohio State and Michigan. So I've got them at still 100% chance for this week because they are playing Wagner. And although it would be the most Rutgers thing in the world to lose to Wagner, I think this will be a game that I can actually watch and enjoy for once because they should hand Wagner a huge loss. I mean, it shouldn't even be close. They got Temple the week after. They blew them out. They scored 60 points, which how Rutgers even score 60 points in a season baffles me, let alone in one game. So I'm going even a week ahead. I'm saying Rutgers is going to be 3-0 going into Iowa.
Let's pump the brakes there. Games to watch this week besides Michigan and Ohio State and Rutgers.
Thank you.
If you want to watch them play Wagner,
Yes.
sure. Why wouldn't
The
you?
Seahawks.
Noon kick, Alabama and Texas. That game will not be close, but I'm going to pretend.
I am excited to
I'm
watch
going to pretend
Ewers,
that it
though.
is.
I am excited to watch Ewers against a legitimate
I think it'll be
school.
fun. I think him, Bijan Robinson. I think it'll be fun. If Texas, I mean, listen, hook 'em or whatever for now. For at least one day. 3:30 Tennessee at Pittsburgh should be fun. Mark that one down. And then when Michigan starts blowing out Hawaii, you've got USC at Stanford at night. This is the way that you want college football to be structured. You want a game in each time slot that you can just watch and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So if Ohio State gets kind of crazy, which it will, Alabama, Texas is there. You've got something at 3:30 to kind of, while you do yard work and stuff,
Yeah,
and
while
prep
you
for
get
the
the chores
nightcap.
done before it's late and you want to watch the actual good stuff.
USC at Stanford, they're on the farm while Michigan's playing Hawaii. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. Again, on Twitter at RivalPod, retweet this episode. You've got an opportunity to win $25 Chick-fil-A gift card. JP, any final thoughts?
I've got an upset for you this week. It is Florida over Kentucky. Hot take.
Wow. Florida with a big win over Utah as well.
And we didn't get to talk about it on the podcast last week, but I actually had them upsetting them.
I'm sure you did.
So
I'm sure you did.
I believe Go Gators. Is that the thing now?
Sure. Yeah. Enjoy the games.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter at RivalPod for live tweets, score predictions, contests, and more. And make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Wednesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.